Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin with our Decision 2025 coverage and a look at the northwestern Ontario riding of Thunder Bay Superior North. APTN's Mike McDonald had a chance to talk with two of the candidates looking to represent the riding, which is home to many First Nations communities.
With close to 20 First Nations within the boundary of Thunder Bay Superior North and a large urban Indigenous population in the city of Thunder Bay, the Indigenous vote could prove to be the deciding factor in this federal election, especially as the riding is identified by the AFN as one that could swing depending on the Indigenous vote. Liberal incumbent and Minister of Indigenous Services Patty Haidu says reconciliation is what she's hearing about on the campaign.
What I'm hearing increasingly from First Nations communities, not just in my riding, but across the country, is a desire to become more engaged in political systems that are not First Nations political systems, because they see the deep connections between getting their priorities achieved with a government that actually cares and understands about the importance of reconciliation.
New Democrat Joy Wakefield acknowledges the unique perspectives among Indigenous voters while touting the party's Indigenous candidates.
Some people take the perspective that this is a colonial system and they don't want to participate, and I understand that. And some people take the position that whatever power they have, they want to use to make sure that it doesn't harm their people. You know, we've seen a lot of strong Indigenous representation coming from this party. Saul Mamakwa provincially. We see Tanya Cameron running out in Kenora, Laura Mayer running down in Algoma.
Haidu says there's still a lot more work to do with regard to mending the relationship with First Nations, adding she will continue those efforts if re-elected.
One of the most fulfilling aspects of the work that I've done over the last 9.5 years, including in the last 3.5 as Minister of Indigenous Services, is forming deep and real relationships with First Nations and Indigenous partners. That's, to me, an essential ingredient in maintaining the strength of our democracy, is that people feel that those systems actually see them and are representing them.
Wakefield says access to safe drinking water remains an issue in some First Nations communities in the riding, as well as access to services such as health care.
Healthcare and access, especially in a lot of the rural communities, is being able to access services, having them in a place that's close enough to where they are, and making sure that their interests are heard in Ottawa.
The Liberals have held the Thunder Bay Superior North riding since 2015. Former Thunder Bay Police Chief Bob Herman carries the Conservative banner in this election. He did not reply to our requests for an interview. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
Now to the Northwest Territories, where our Yellowknife video journalist Bruce Dela Cruz gives us an idea of what the candidates there are doing as voting day closes in.
The Northwest Territories is home to over 40,000 people and is the second largest federal riding after Nunavut, covering over 1.3 million square kilometers. Many problems plague the riding, including substance abuse, environmental issues, and the price of food. But what will candidates tackle first if they are elected? For Liberal Party candidate Rebecca Alty, who was born and raised in Yellowknife and until now was the city's mayor, the ongoing drug crisis is one of her main concerns.
And so really a two-pronged approach is one is on the enforcement side, and so the Liberal Party is looking to hire 1,000 more RCMP, 1,000 more customs officers to be able to reduce the drugs coming into the country. On the other side is the support for addictions, for the trauma healing. So one of the things we recently announced was $7 million for the wellness, for the healing center with the Dene Wellness Warriors.
Green Party candidate Rainbow Eyes is a member of the Danakdao Awitlala First Nation and currently lives in British Columbia. She says affordable housing and social services for underrepresented groups are at the top of her list.
Nobody should be paying like over 50% of their income on their rent, but that's the fact, you know. But I think along with that, the wellness of the people as well for social services, like dentistry for the small communities, as well as to us LGBTQ support. I think the wellness of the people should come, with the economy and the wellness of the economy.
NDP candidate Kelvin Kachilier, who is Tlicho and lives in Yellowknife, has also narrowed it down to affordability, but wants to tackle healthcare and infrastructure as well.
With healthcare, we're heavily reliant on the Alberta government when it comes to programs and services, which is very unfortunate, knowing that we're in 2025 and these services have decreased across the board. But when it comes to infrastructure, we have a lot of aging buildings within our communities. A good example would be water treatment plants that are all going to be due relatively all at the same time, which is going to be in the millions of dollars.
With Indigenous people representing nearly half of the total population of the Northwest Territories, we asked each candidate why Indigenous voters should cast their votes for them.
I would, as I said, follow my own traditions to be a voice for the people. And I would listen first, and I would grow community and bring people together. Because from my experiences, this is what we need right now more than anything, more than policy.
Yeah, I would say that it's, my focus on the big issues that we are facing. So the drug crisis, settling land claims, and growing capacity in Indigenous governments to take on more and more authority.
And the winner of this election, and I would love to be quoted by this, will be dictated by the communities. And there's a lot of people hurting, suffering, frustrated. And if you truly want change, come out and vote. Because I'm going to be putting the best that I can, and I can promise you that I'm going to give it my all.
APTN News attempted to contact Conservative candidate Kimberly Fairman, but did not receive confirmation for an interview. Election Day is April 28th. Voters in Yellowknife can come to the Chateau Nova Hotel at 4571 48th Street. Be sure to bring 2 pieces of accepted ID, which includes a driver's license and a passport. For a full list of accepted ID, go online at www.elections.ca. Bruce De La Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Thanks, Bruce. Still to come tonight, we'll head back to New York City for our continuing coverage of the 24th Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Stick around. Welcome back. Post-secondary courses are being offered in Nunvik in northern Quebec, with one launching on April 22nd. That's today. As Savannah Craig reports, this is only the first step in a much larger goal, which is to offer students there an opportunity to complete degrees in Nunvik without having to relocate to the south for education.
Education is key. And even better if it's given in our language.
So says Nunavik teacher Jennifer Hopenokme.
It'll help be able to educate a lot more of us whose mother tongue is Inuktitut.
Nunavik does not have any post-secondary institutions, forcing Inuit to travel south to continue their education after high school. The Kativik Ilisak Nilivinik School Board is taking steps to develop access to further education in Nunavik. Phoebe Bentley is Kativik's Director of Post-Secondary Student Services.
Nunavik is the only Inuit region in Canada that doesn't have a post-secondary institution. So I think it's important to show that students can achieve higher education or pursue higher education in their region without having to leave their family and friends for long periods of time.
She says 8 courses are being developed, and one is launching on April 22nd called Inuit Media. It will teach students how to produce their own content through audio and video, and will be offered in Inuktitut, Nunvik, and taught in Inuktitut.
For me to be able to teach a college course in my language is really important to me.
Hopenokme says elders will be involved in the course as well.
Word got around back then, even if it was through dog teaming. So I think it's really important that we not only teach the students what kind of tools they can use today, but also what tools were used in the past.
The course is in partnership with John Abbott College, a Quebec institution based in the West Island of Montreal.
We don't have jurisdiction in post-secondary education, so we need to work with partners like John Abbott, who can offer the credits and who can hire the teachers.
Bentley has a much larger goal, which is to offer post-secondary degrees in Nunavik. She is working with Makivik, the legal representative of Quebec's Inuit, to try and make this a possibility.
And that's one of the things that we've been lobbying with the government to try to ensure that these students who want to stay in the region we're able to sponsor them the same that we would if they came down south.
Those involved say offering courses in the region is the first step to make their larger goal possible.
What I would really like to see in Nunavik is my children and my nieces and my nephews and my cousins' children and my future grandchildren to be able to receive a post-secondary education in Nunavik, where we belong. I would really like that.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
It's the second day of the 24th Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues at United Nations headquarters in New York City. APTN's Angel Moore is in the Big Apple covering the forum for us.
Implementing UNDRIP, the United Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and holding member states who signed up to it to live up to their commitments was the focus this morning. The Quebec delegation took to Times Square, where they rented a billboard that says, Indigenous peoples' rights call for respect for UNDRIP in Quebec, Canada. Ghislain Picard speaks for his people, the Innu Nation.
Where it's a success, but also where it's a failure. And as when it comes to Quebec and with the Innu Nation, the Quebec government has failed the Innu Nation on many fronts. The caribou, forestry, mining, and so on. So I think the Quebec government is just simply not adhering to the principles. They know it exists, but that's where it stops.
In another session inside UN headquarters, delegates from the Amazon spoke about the impacts of oil and gas extraction in their lands.
From the indigenous peoples, we're telling the world that we don't want any more exploitation in the territories of the Colombian Amazon. I want to specifically talk about the project implemented in the Putumayo department in Colombia, where we have a Canadian multinational called Ibero Copper that is entering into the territories impacting directly indigenous peoples in their social, cultural life, and also impacting the environment. A los pueblos indígenas.
Talks included member states not implementing UNDRIP and a lack of consultation. The Sami delegation from Northern Europe said the green solution is causing land encroachment that impacts the reindeer herds. That is Sarah Elvira Kamanen. She is the leader of the Sami Youth Association.
And now we also are being affected of this so-called solution, the green transition. For us, it isn't just transition, it's more of a dark transition, because our rights aren't being respected, or our land areas.
The talks continue on Wednesday with the rights of nature and the impacts of continuing resource extraction. Angel Moore, APTN National News, New York.
Thanks, Angel. In honor of Earth Day, the Manitoba government announced funding for projects meant to benefit First Nations today. Details on that and much more after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And from the beauty of East Kootenay, British Columbia, Dorothy Ratch snapped this truly scenic view. Thanks for sharing with us all, Dorothy. You can send your pictures to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, showers and 12 for Fredericton and Halifax. +3 with snow in Kuujjuaq, cloudy and 2 in Nain. 12 in Montreal, snow and 3 in Chibougamau. Cloudy and 11 in Sault Ste. Marie, sun's out and 12 in North Bay. 12 in Thunder Bay, 8 in Sioux Lookout. 9 for God's Lake, Norway House and the Paw. 9 in Winnipeg, 6 with snow in Dauphin. 8 in Regina, 13 in Saskatoon. 14 in Meadow Lake, +3 in Uranium City. In northern Alberta, showers and 12 in High Level, 13 in Fort McMurray. 12 in Edmonton, 14 in Medicine Hat. 14 in Vancouver, 20 for Kamloops. 13 in Prince George, 14 in Smithers. -5 with snow in Old Crow, 7 above in Whitehorse. -1 in Yellowknife, 4 below in Norman Wells. -11 with snow in Sax Harbor and Pawlatuck. -4 in Chesterfield, +1 with flurries in Arviette. -11 in Resolute and Igloolik. In celebration of Earth Day, the Manitoba government has committed $1.86 million to support 35 community-led climate action projects. The funding will help several Indigenous communities across the province expand clean energy, install electric vehicle charging stations, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Turtle Island Innovations, the Grand Rapids Indigenous Chamber of Commerce, and the Swampy Cree Climate Council received a total of $385,000 to implement climate action projects. $500,000 is earmarked for installing 51 electric vehicle chargers across Manitoba, including in the Penamatang First Nation and Mississippiwasta Cree Nation. The Tuesday announcement also spotlighted the Seal River watershed. The 500,000 square kilometer watershed is in northern Manitoba is one step closer to becoming an Indigenous protected conservation area after passing a federal feasibility study in March. Stephanie Tharassi speaks for the Seal River Watershed Alliance.
The final report has been published, and it found that creating a protected area is possible. So here's the thing. This isn't just being done in isolation. The Alliance nations are leading this work, yes, but we do it in the spirit of cooperation and consensus. We work nation to nation to nation with the governments of Manitoba and Canada. We will continue to engage rights holders, business owners, conservation groups, tourism associations, and you, the public.
An art exhibit showcasing 2 up-and-coming First Nations artists from Manitoba comes to Winnipeg this month. The themes are meant to challenge the way we think about urban development. Veronica Blackhawk has more.
So these pieces, to me, really spoke for my mom, who was a survivor, and the fact that when I was painting these, no one really had a clue on what Indigenous people went through.
Zach Ironstand and Marco Mueller are the artists behind Urban Shaman Gallery's latest exhibit called Junctions. Curated by Justin Berlavi, he chooses to work with street artists to convey the relationship we have with urban development and those displaced by it.
The issues that our communities go through were seen as the Indian problem, and that narrative hasn't gone away, the way that the media approaches things like addictions, things like houselessness.
While the general public disapproves the sight of broken bus shacks and abandoned shopping carts, Junctions puts them front and center, creating a space to reflect on the origin of that discomfort.
That's what people don't understand. With these people on the street, those are survivors. Those are people that are human beings, and we have this horrible like way of treating those people.
The Manitoban artists, Ironstand from Tutanawajibing and Mueller from Puckatawagan First Nation have a strong connection to the topic.
So the ghosts represent the children that were buried. The white sheet kind of represents them being covered and disposed of, and the orange bones represents the color of the residential school survivors.
Catch the exhibit until April 30th at the Urban Shaman Gallery in Winnipeg. Veronica Blackhawk, APTN National News.
Interesting. Thanks, Veronica. Juno Award-winning Cree singer-songwriter Sebastian Gaskin is our guest on an all-new episode of Face to Face tonight. Gaskin has been racking up the accolades recently, culminating with his Juno win for Contemporary Indigenous Artist of the Year last month. But he says he's not in it for the awards.
To be recognized by the Canadian music industry after sort of doing it for so long, it's elating. It's very exciting, and but it's at the same time it's not everything. Like the reason I got into making music was to help heal myself. I got into it when I was maybe 12, 13 years old, right when I was sort of discovering like things like depression and anxiety and that sort of stuff. And so I figured out that if I write down my feelings on a piece of paper or my phone or whatever, then I didn't feel quite as bad the next day, right? And so I carried that into my 20s, and obviously now I've been lucky enough to make a career out of it, and so I'm happy that my music is out in the world and helping other people heal, in different ways.
You can catch our interview with Sebastian Gaskin in about 2 minutes from now. He also blessed us with a performance of his song Brown Man. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. You can find much more on our website, aptnnews.ca. And Creason will be here with your first look at the day's news tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.